Seth,
Hello, Leo. Good to be back.
wow, it's great to be back. I'm so happy that we're doing this live now. I mean, terrible circumstances, but at least no one can say that we didn't try to warn everyone.
I can't say
Seth,
that I can't say that there's ever any
Hello, Leo.
benefits
Good to
to
be back.
war.
it's great.
I can't say that there's any benefit to war, but certainly this process is making everyone do a lot of clarifications, a lot of things that were not clear before becoming a lot more clear, and I think to a lot of people.
I think it's two interesting things happened. A lot of the sort of this force in the system that we call the anti-Semite, the anti-Jew, right? The pressure of the system. That force revealed itself. It started with that event on the ground in Israel, but then it kind of grew into this worldwide revelation, right? Masks were off, right? We're like, we're here to pressure the Jews.
Was all of that always below the surface and we just didn't see it, or did it just?
Well, that's what we're claiming, basically, that it never goes away. It's a force that's always there to push that function called a Jew in the system to unite. As crazy as it sounds, the patterns never lie. With great separation and disunity comes great calamity that forces Jews to unite. And we're trying to see if we can take that revealed unity and leverage it and strengthen it and keep it after and really start leading the world, with that, right? Nothing else.
There's something that's going on for several thousand years. Humanity is in desperate need of a change of direction towards a positive direction. And it's not as if everything has just been a failure up until now, but it's a process of development. But now we can take that development into our hands and we can create a good future, but it requires some understanding and it requires some cooperation.
Yeah, and a lot of healing, I think. And I think our guest, we have a great guest today, a great episode, a great talk with a good friend of ours. I'm going to introduce him in a minute and invite him to join us. He's an unusual guest. He's from Germany. He's in Berlin. He's a systemic Gestalt therapist, which is really a therapy, right? That focuses on relationships, on the environment, on the circle, right? And he really works with collective trauma, which is interesting because the whole world seems to be in a state of collective trauma. Different groups sort of competing for who's the greatest victim, who's the greatest perp, and people sort of take turns. We want to break out of that loop, and hopefully he can help us shed some light on that. And he has also a very, very interesting life story that I hope we're going to hear about. So without further ado, we're going to invite Joachim Wiert. Weinert. I'm sorry, I totally messed up your name.
Totally fine. Hi, Leo.
Hi, Joachim. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be with you.
We've done this show for a while now, I can say, and I don't think we've ever had someone like yourself. You have a really interesting story, and I wonder if you'll be willing to share it. I hope you told me you share it, so I hope you're still into that. But that you're willing to share it because I think that your life circumstances, where you come from, where you're going, and where you are is really an interesting mix. Maybe you can give us a little background tell us about yourself, and we can get our viewers or listeners to get into that world of yours.
So the world of mine is basically, it started in Berlin, like being born here, and I live here and work here as a psychotherapist, working mainly online with clients all over the world. And it's, for me, the work is basically also a fruit of the work is also my life, or the other way around. It depends how you see it. And the thing is that I was born into a Christian family, German Christian family. And I had loving parents and loving grandfathers and grandmothers. And at some point, I remember my grandfather Rudolf sitting with me. I was maybe 12 or so, playing my guitar, and he was adoring me. And so I felt his love. He would, always treat me for my favorite ice cream at the ice cream parlor, like spaghetti ice cream. I don't know if you know this. And at some point when I grew older, I learned that my grandfather was a member of the Nazi Party. And so this was, of course, a shock for me, because I got to know him as a loving man, as a loving grandfather.
You're not Jewish, right? There's no Jewish
No.
roots in your family.
There's no Jewish root, although I have a Hebrew name, Joachim, but of course its Christianity is rooted, of course, as we know, in Judaism. And so yes, this kind of brought me to this journey. I really like my family, actually my background. And it's really exciting for me to meet you now. I come from the German place. You are Jewish in Israel and in the United States. And just to give you an experience, like growing up, I always had this feeling I was born on the wrong side of the road. I was born on the side, the German side, the Christians, the perpetrators. And I would like kind of like looking on the other side of the road. There were the good guys, the Americans, the Jews, the ones who, whatever, did good things, maybe not always, but just as a mainstream. So this, because whenever I watched an American movie, if they need a bad guy, they took a German, right? So this is what I grew up with in this culture. And this kind of gave me bad feelings. And of course, there was also anger and shame. So all this mixed bag really got me going. And of course, then first I was a journalist, and then I changed my profession and said, I want to go deeper. And I did this training in Gestalt therapy, and then did my expertise in collective trauma, like this, looking at the system, because the system did so much with me, being family system, meaning my community, my land. All this did so much for me. And in the beginning, it didn't feel nice, right? So this is what got me started.
And I wonder, just did you meet the Jews early on in life, or what was your interaction with Jews? I'm curious because
yeah, it's a great question, because I never met Jews as a kid, as a teenager, but I met Jews at school in the school books. And what they would do is telling us the story of the Third Reich and saying, well, there were the Nazis, and they would make propaganda against Jews, and they would show the pictures, the propaganda images of the Nazis referring to Jews. This is how I was introduced to Jews, by the propaganda of the Nazis. So this was confusing. They told me, oh, that's not good. It's propaganda. It's the Nazi. But at the same time, I was shown the pictures. I wasn't shown the real Jew. Who today, if this is bad, how they did it, how they framed the Jews, what's the real picture here? I never got it.
When you met a Jew, when you came across Jews in your life, what was the juxtaposition or the difference between this image that you had growing up and then what these flesh and blood were in front of you?
Well, it's interesting. I was traveling to Israel at some point, and I remember it was part of a workshop, and there was this Jewish woman. She is like my mom, like born in 43. So she said, yeah, I'm a Holocaust survivor. Of course she is. She was born in Ukraine. And at some point I was going to the workshop place, and she saw me, and she waved a kiss to me, and I felt like I was crying the whole way through, because I could not believe that a Jewish woman who is a Holocaust survivor would have good feelings towards me.
Joachim, the same way that every Jew right now is kind of like is on the receiving end. What's the experience for you're not a Nazi, you're not a Nazi sympathizer. You just happen to be born in a place where you receive this kind of collective identification.
Right.
But inside, I mean, I see your emotion right now. You are warm and compassionate, caring person. So, what is that feeling for you to be born in that place, but with this kind of heart?
It's a challenge. It's a challenge because in the beginning, and this is what I learned later in my work, doing all these trainings. In the beginning, when we are born basically, and now I use some language of psychotherapy just to introduce it, and we can see if we want to use it. We are born into kind of a field, and this is the reality. Like when I'm born into a field of collective shame, for example, then I, as the newborn, feel that, of course, without words, but then it's like, aha, shame is part of the reality here. I don't feel shame, but this is how we do it. So I take it on as a clothing. And then later on, it needs a lot of time to kind of undress that clothing. For me, having my vulnerability, my heart, my compassion, it was kind of buried many times under these experiences of the community and the collective and the family.
Can we define what those collective fields are? Are there like 5 collective fields in the world? Are there infinite number of collective fields in the world? Like because, for example, you're a Jew living in the U.S. now. People are throwing stones at your stores. People are stopping you in traffic and harassing you. You're part of that field. You
Right.
could be against Israel, but you're still part of that field because
Exactly.
you're in there. So you're born in Germany. You feel going through school, growing up as a child, that somehow you're a perpetrator, that somehow you've done something wrong, even though you were just born, you didn't do anything, right? Are there these certain categories
Well,
that exist
basically,
already?
yeah. Well, it's basically an infinite number because every collective field is comprised of identities. We know that in psychotherapy, each of us has to build an identity. You would, an identity, what is that? It's everything I say I to. I am a Berliner, I'm a German, that's my identity. Or maybe I love ice cream. So that's part of everybody builds these identities. And if you, Seth, and you, Leo, both say, I am a Jew as an identity, so this connects you to a field already for the two of you. And then there is more.
But the thing is, the challenging part for us is that with Jews, it's almost like there's no choice, whether you choose it or not. It's you're being others are choosing for you. It's almost it's been the case almost always throughout history. Once you're sort of born into this, for some reason, which we're probably not going to get into it in this short time we have, but for some reason it feels like Jews have this identity that's thrust upon them, that it's a collective identity, and that you're part of it. You can't convert out of it. Even in the Holocaust, we saw, right, 2, 3, 4, 5 generations back into it, you're in it. It's clearly not a genetic thing. It's not a racial, ethnic thing. It's not even a religious thing, because you can be none of those things or all those things, and yet somehow you're part of that thing.
Right.
So I wonder, how do you observe the Jewish identity? I'm curious. Does it fall into a certain specific category for you? Is it just like any other, and yet another nation?
Well, first I have to say, I didn't choose myself either. I didn't choose to be a German, right? And when you look at it, I think what you bring is here an important differentiation. There is the identity that I look from inside out and identity from outside in,
Right.
right? So what you point to is you are being thrown stones at you because somebody is looking from outside in and say, oh, you do this and you whatever. From your inner perspective, of course, you totally have a different experience and different view. But this is part of the challenge we are having, that we consider we don't only build our own identities, we also have our opinions about identities of others. So there's this inside out and outside in view.
So,
And when you, sorry.
no, please continue.
And I just want to also name, like, the Jewish identity for me is very vague, so to speak, because
Not just for you, by the way.
it's really, oh, it's a nation, it's some spiritual path. There's a land that is obviously for the Jews, and so there is the people, and it's really kind of like a fluffy and kind of not. It's hard to grasp for me, first of all. But I think that's part of the journey. Yeah?
You were saying so.
Yeah, but it's opening up so many things here. From the inside and from the outside, you're saying that these things are defined.
Mhm.
So from the outside, you grew up, you watched movies, right? Indiana Jones, the Raiders of the Lost Ark, whatever it is. You want you want a bad guy, you give him a German accent.
Mhm.
From the outside, from the
Mhm.
inside, you're this boy who didn't, whose hands are clean and wants things to be good. The Jews experience this now. Also, I'm almost feeling from this that there's, our conversation is normally around Jews and anti-Semitism, but I'm wondering if this is if we might be able to take this as a microcosm for all humanity, and if we can solve it on this level, that it can be something that can benefit in every group, in every place. With the Jews, you have this. And this specific situation that happened in October really brought it home, because the communities that live down by Gaza,
Mhm.
specifically those communities, you would find a woman there who would bring people from Gaza to a certain hospital who needed it. You would find that the festival that was going on there was like a peace festival.
Mhm.
And so from the inside, those people are saying, I'm trying to do something to make things better for everybody. I'm trying to bridge the gaps. I'm trying to pray for peace. And from the outside, people came and said, you're the devil and we need to kill you.
Right.
And it's not the first time that's happened. Again, I think, and that's the sort of the weird thing. I think, and I think you'll agree, no one gets up in the morning, maybe with a few rare exceptions after the seventh, I might say, but no one really gets up in the morning thinking that today we're going to be bad. You think you're going to be doing something good
Oh, yeah.
for a certain cause or for a certain group of people,
So
right?
this is the issue, though, because you have your perspective from the inside. Someone else has their perspective from the outside. They're totally opposite.
Mhm. Right. And
There's
this is
no place for.
right. And this is part of my work, that I try to create spaces where it's possible that we can meet. I mean, of course, that's a challenge, right? And so the challenge is, when I meet someone that I think who is the enemy, this brings up feelings, right? So there needs to be some expertise in creating a space that is safe enough for all to actually meet. Of course, we
You
are not there. I'm aware.
Yeah, so
But
Joachim, but before we get there, like, that's such a pipe dream right now, because
Mhm.
the two parties are not ready to speak. There's so many disagreements between them. So then,
Forget the part. Okay, continue your thought, Seth, because I want to make it even bigger. But
so I'm interested in finding the place where there is a place for doing work, and there is a place for improvement, and there is a place to make things better. Because on the one hand, we want peace in the entire world, but if there's no one to talk to at the beginning, so then we can't just sit on our hands. So then where can we begin the work?
and I'll make it more difficult for you, Joachim, because I know you can handle it. Thinking even bigger, it was just a piece by Abigail Schreier, I think her name is pronounced. It's called "This Is Not a Drill" from commentary.org. It's an online magazine, and she writes. She kind of tried to analyze these different groups that wake up in the wake of the seventh, right, and immediately took sides and kind of steadfastly stood against Israel and for these guys and against it, and almost like in ways that don't make sense. Certain groups, as we know, that will never be accepted in that side of the world. We're all for that side of the world, and her, the summary of what she said, she's like, the LGBTQs and the environmentalists and all those guys, and they don't really care about their ideals. What they care about is sort of an ideology of hate the man who is better off than you are. A sort of an attitude of this, just cancel what appears to be somehow better or higher or the new, and that's what sort of unites this all these different groups. It feels good to kind of and we know humanity does it, right? They erase it. So the question is to follow up on Seth's framework. How do you can you even bring these groups to the table? Can there even be a safe space? What are we talking about here? What can be done here? You're dealing with collective trauma. Sounds like a crazy collective trauma, going on here. What do you think can be done?
Right, I totally agree, and I want to refer to both of you, because what I hear from you now, Leo, is this envy. Someone like putting my rage against someone who I think who is better off for some reason. There is a study here in Germany, and it's a book called "Why the Jews, Why the Germans?" What's the clash here? And the conclusion, the main conclusion is that there was a lot of envy of the Germans towards the Jews here in Germany, because many Germans felt they are doing so well not in regards to being wealthy. It's not about that, but they are so educated, and then they are really doing well in a way that they have a great community, and we don't have that, right? And there is a strong point here that how can I deal with my envy emotionally? It's one of the toughest pieces we have to struggle with. Envy drives us to be more successful than others and everything, and to be even rageful. And so when you ask me what's the starting point here, first of all, the starting point, and this is the psychotherapist speaking, of course, the starting point is within myself. I need to own that I'm envious. I need to own that I'm rageful. So then, when I own that and say, oh yeah, there's so much rage for whatever reasons, when I start to own that and I have a space where I can express it, I'm not acting it out. Just by the way, when I'm acting out rage, I'm not feeling it. So there's a strong connection here.
What does that mean? What does that mean? If I'm rage, of course I feel it.
If what I'm saying is, if you act out your rage, you're not feeling it. Acting out rage or whatever feeling you have, acting out anything, is going away from your feeling. Beating up someone, I'm going away from myself. If I would be able to contain myself and, wow, I'm so rageful, I'm bursting from anger, from rage. And if there is a relational space, like here with us, if one of you, of me, would express something like rage, and we would all be able to be with the other one and say, okay, I feel you, I feel rage. And then there's something bigger than me, and there's a bigger vessel. We co-create a bigger vessel here. And then
Can we slow this down? You're going too fast for me to comprehend. If a person's feeling rage and they go out and rape and murder, you're saying this is not an you can't do that on your normal Monday morning having a cup of coffee feelings. You need to be filled with this rage in order to do those things.
Yes, totally.
So what do you mean when you're saying that when you go to express your rage, you're not feeling rage? I want to get to where you just got, where we're all together building something bigger, but I don't understand the steps.
The step is, I want to differentiate here between acting out rage and feeling rage. There is a strong distinction here. And what I'm saying is, if I go out and beat someone up for whatever reason, maybe there's not a reason at all, I'm not feeling it. If I would be able to, what does it mean to feel something? To feel something means I'm able, and it's a lot about identity, I'm able to feel my body, I'm able, this is me, and I'm able to feel the emotion moving through my body, my heart, my whole system is maybe in rage, but I'm able to actually experience this rage because I'm able to have a kind of a witness in myself saying, oh yeah, oh, there's rage. Wow, 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 that's big. There's a lot of fire here. How can I do it? I need to feel my body. That's the first step. If you ask me for a first step, that's the first step you need to do. You want to feel your body. And if I'm feeling my body, it's inside my system. And then there is me inside my system, and then there's somebody else, and there's a
so when people are going out into the street and protesting and smashing things, what is that?
That's acting out, and this means there is some kind of trigger, something in the news, somebody said something, there's a trigger. And as we know, the trigger from the gun, right? If you give me the trigger, boom, it gets off. But this means if I follow my trigger, I'm not able to feel myself, I need to just act it out and let the bullet fly. And this is what's the benefit of doing that? Then I get rid of the tension in my system. There's a lot of tension when I'm rageful. There's a lot that wants to move. And if I don't know how to work with it, how to be with it, I need to let it explode. And after this, and this is the term from Sigmund Freud, the Triebabfuhr, it's the inclination that has kind of discharged. There's a discharge.
So there's this energy that has to be spent somewhere.
Right.
So it's either spent by violence, or screaming at a protest, right? Or now you're saying there's another way to deal with it.
Okay, so before we go to the other way, let's go to a short break. Let everybody think about that for a second, and we'll watch a little bumper here for the Thejewfunction. All right, so the Thejewfunction. A lot of people ask, what is this, and who are we?
Are we anti-Semitic? Are we self-hating Jews? I heard that also.
We're like you. We're concerned citizens. We did our research, hours and hours and hours of research into historic patterns, into Jewish texts, and I mean a lot of Jewish texts, going all the way back to Abraham and other notable sages and Kabbalists, and all the way into the recent era. You'll be surprised how much amazing quotes exist about the need for Jews to unite. So that's why we're doing this podcast. Like us, hit the bell thing on the YouTube so you can get a notification when a new episode is up. Share it far and wide. Find something that you like. YouTube lets you cut clips. Share that clip with a loved one, with a Jewish friend, with a non-Jew who's like bothering you at work about something, and we're like, oh, That clip is exactly what I needed. Share it far and wide. Commenting is a great way to get a conversation going. And let's get back to our guest. All right. So people want to, by the way, in the chat, I see people want to understand about this transformation of energy. And tell us, I think it'd be nice to hear if can it be done? It sounds like something that can be done maybe in a one-on-one session, maybe a small group that's committed to it. But we're talking about mass groups here, Joachim. I mean, we're talking about
and a lot at stake.
Yeah, citywide, and this kind of eruption that started, that was triggered by the events on the 7th, which it's almost like the train is out of the station. Almost like what can we do here? Do you think?
Well, first of all, and I think we heard this in the Kabbala studies. We are studying Kabbala, and what I'm understanding is only what is being revealed can be corrected. So if we keep things under the carpet, they wreak havoc again and again. And this doesn't work. It needs to be opened up, and it's ugly. We need to be dissatisfied with that, to say the least. We need to be disgusted by this, what's coming up.
So just a little sidebar here, because you just kind of went naturally. How does someone who was born in a home where his grandfather was a Nazi supporter, how do you find Kabbalah? Can you give us a little in parentheses? How did you find this? It's not a given.
No, it's not a given, and this was the amazing thing for me that happened, because there was a strong journey. I was born a Christian, and I was raised a Christian, and at some point I had a conversation actually with a Jew, and he would tell me about his perspective, his suffering, about like how he experienced his part of the journey, and his ancestors being under destruction and being so violated, and he shared about the story. And when I had this conversation, there was an inner image I had, like, I need to go to Israel, I need to go to Jerusalem, there's something for me there. Don't know why, the mind couldn't tell me. And so at some point I went to Israel. I was researching. I started from the Christian point, going to the places of Jesus. And because Joachim is the name of the grandfather of Jesus, right? So I went to this church where Joachim and Anna, they have this church in Jerusalem, and there was Mary, Holy Mary, and she gave birth to, I did this. I want to find my spiritual DNA. I did this research, and I was sitting, meditating on the Sea of Galilee, and I was connecting to Jesus and all that. And at some point I felt this is a dead end. I need to go beyond that wall of Christianity. And so I was kept on looking. And at some point, somebody told me about Kabbalah, and this brought me into Kabbalah. And the biggest revelation for me of Kabbalah was that I learned, I was invited. Yeah, you're a German, you have a Christian, yeah, you come, you can be part of us. And I was like, what? Are you telling me I'm not on the wrong side of the road anymore? Yes, you can join if you want. I mean, we don't have to. I said, well, yeah, I want. So it was I can't give enough words to it, what a revelation and relief it was that I'm not on the outside anymore of what we call Israel. And this is what I learned, and this is of course what you know. Israel, the foundation of the word, is Yashakel, directly to the Creator. And I was told, yeah, we all want to go to the Creator. Come on, you can join us. And this was huge. Like the wall I experienced from birth suddenly was gone.
Is this something that this is a personal experience? the whole world is not going to come to study in Jerusalem, right, for something, but is this something that, but the concept of being able to switch from one sphere to the other is huge.
Right,
Is this something that you see that can happen on a global level?
right. I think this needs to happen on a global level. And this is what I understand. This is my understanding, and I'm curious about yours. My understanding is the Torah was given to people who wanted to go straight to God, calling themselves Israel. And this is for all. It's for everyone. And it's such a healing means, the Torah. And it cannot be that someone is excluded from that. And this is my experience. I had a huge relief when I was invited into that.
Well, we talk about when we have when we've done the research, you see that a lot of the sages speak about that, and they do speak about this responsibility that a small group of people has toward the rest of the world. That the world, on its own, will not be able to reach that conclusion or have that sort of very intelligent awakening, let's call it, where you start to ask those questions. This is a it's a heavy lifting. But if there was a group that started this process and stuck to it and kind of served as an example, then everybody else would gradually join that. That's really what we've been saying, and what Jewish sages have been saying, and what we found the history to show is somewhat self-evident. At least the negation of that state always brought calamity to this group who was supposed to lead it.
Exactly.
And also network science is what we're saying. Shows that, listen, like it or not, you need to have this group, these hubs in the system that start to act out the next degree in the evolution of the system. They have to act it out. They have to let those impulses go through the system, and then the whole system rises.
Exactly.
I mean,
but this is, I think this is straight to the point here, because I don't think that everybody needs to join Kabbalah.
right. No, that's
It's
what
very,
we're saying.
as you say, it's very specific. But if the message would be, yes, there is a group of people from all around the world who go on that path, but they don't do it for themselves. They do it for humanity. I'm not studying Kabbalah for myself to have a great life, to be better off. I am doing that my friends are having a good path, but basically that the whole of humanity, we are working for humanity all together.
And is there? I'm curious. Let's bring it back to like where you started from. Is there some sort of a counterpart to that in Gestalt psychotherapy? Maybe another.
Yeah. So how do you, by transforming through your personal work, how's the world affected? Because mostly what we want to do is we want to go, push our agenda into, we want to colonize another place, or we want to defeat them and take over there and install our leadership. But what we're asking here specifically is, through my personal transformation, or through this transformation in this small group of people who, with this aim towards good for all, how will that translate into a transformation of the world at large?
Well, let's do it, make it personal, so it may be more feasible.
So start with psychotherapy. I'm sorry, and then end on
Yes.
Seth's point.
In psychotherapy, we call this intergenerational trauma or resources. So this is where it gets feasible. What I'm trying to say is, intergenerational means my ancestors pass on their trauma and their knowledge, both. This is what I feel. This is what I feel. I can feel it in my senses, in my body. So that's the starting point. This is what we work with. And when you ask me about like the work, you can see it here in the background here. Maybe you can see it like there's a tree, right? And there's a birth here in the center, and there are roots, and the roots lead to another tree. My mom, my dad, your mom, your dad. And so there is a system here. Sorry, there's a system here. We are rooted in that system of ancestors, and they influence us through their deeds and what they could accomplish and what they could not accomplish. Everything that they could not accomplish stays as we call it, unfinished business. Unfinished business means I could not reconcile with my neighbor. I killed him. So and it could not be resolved. And this trauma will be passed on to my kids.
So interesting. Again, I'm just putting like in parentheses. What you're describing here is something that we were saying, but we kind of lack the words for it. But this is not a genetic thing. This is not a. This is something that is passed on, as you say, where you can say, look, this group, has something that's been passed on for generations, which is not ethnic, it's not genetic, it's not racial, it's not. It's kind of like in the same, in the same way that we're having trouble defining Jews, you can use what you're describing to actually define Jews and define this trauma and define what's happening in the world in this way, because these traumas and these and the knowledge to heal them is passed from group to group, right? From individual to individual.
Well, and to make a point here, it's also in the genes, because the genes are being also changed. Because we know from practice, we know this from the studies, that, for example, if a man is at war, after this, he begets a child. So we know that in his seeds, he carries the trauma that he has experienced himself or that he induced. It's in the seeds. It's being passed on biologically, physiologically. Same thing with the woman. We know that a woman who is carrying a child, if it's a girl, the girl already has all the eggs that she will later carry on in the womb that she is in. And so it's all interwoven in a way that we don't even come close to finding out about yet. But what I'm saying is it's being passed on all levels, genes, emotionally. And just to make a point here, I know it's about time, but when people come together, they create a relational field, just like the three of us now. We co-create a relational field, and this has an impact. If we would keep walking together, this relational field would be stronger and stronger. Others would feel it even more. And we would co-create a culture for us, the way we would act, not act. And this has an impact, and then maybe someone else is attracted to it or repulsed from it, either way. So what I'm saying is, we need to, when two people meet, we have three actors, person one, person two, and the relational field. And many times we are not aware of that relational field. We say, oh, there's you, there's me, but there's a third actor, so to speak, a third stakeholder in that. And this stakeholder is not only you and I, it's also part in which community are we living in. It's also influencing this stakeholder of the relational space and so on. So this is just to give you a sense of the work here.
There's that famous expression, simple expression, the sum of the parts is the sum of the whole is greater than the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, right? There's some extra something that's born from the group. So if we have a group, we're saying here that it's the Jews, even though we're saying most Jews don't know that they're Jews. And also it's important, I'm sure you know this, but for people who are listening to us, that like Ruth, King David's grandmother was a Moabite. She didn't come from the tribe of Israel. Moses married the daughter of a Midianite priest, right, from Midian, not a Jew. Just Jew meaning like born out of such and such a land. So there's countless examples throughout even the biblical history. And then we should consider it into now, that a person who joins this field, we're not talking about signing some documents, so when you get married it says something, and we're not talking about passports and things like that, but we're really talking about that field. Let's talk about what is that field and what's happening in that field.
Let's go to a bumper, and then we'll talk about it. I know you guys here, and you can't change the world, right? You can't change a country, you can't change a city, you can't change a neighborhood. It's hard to get everyone in your building to agree on something, but you can change yourself, and that's what we're after. Little changes that will grow to a critical mass. What we're saying also is that we Jews, we've had it. There was a moment in time that Jews actually touched that quality that the whole world is waiting for us to give them, and which is what we're discussing in our talks. And you can hear about it in episode 7 of the Mystery Book Podcast, the first 22 episodes of this whole series. And we go into some really heartwarming descriptions, right? Like the
Temple
Woodstock.
Love, that episode is called.
What's that? Temple Love, right?
Yeah, Temple Love.
Yeah, it was the Woodstock before Common Era.
Yeah, people should listen to that one and get a taste of something that they always knew should exist or could exist. It did exist. That's what we're looking to build. Check that out in episode number 7, Temple Love.
Well, this is the Thejewfunction, and let's get back to our guest.
So what you brought now, Seth, about how can we work with that, what comes up for me is we started our conversation with talking about identities. And you have an identity, I have, and groups have identities. It's very important to find out the group identity, inside out, outside in. What we want to establish, I believe, is the capacity, first off, that I'm able to change my identity. If I say I'm a Berliner, then I move to Hamburg, and then I have a hard time. I'm living in Hamburg, but I still, but actually I'm a Berliner, you know, and this creates a tension. It's not coherent. I need to be able to, and I'm just taking this simple example, right? I'm need to shift my identity into, now I'm a Hamburger. Okay. In English, it sounds funny. I'm a hamburger. But so what I'm trying to say, we need to establish the capacity. We are always changing identities without even realizing it. I'm changing my identity from first grader, then I become the second grader. It's a different identity.
And is anti-Semitism passed down in this way as well, you think? Because
yes,
I want to make it hard, because we right. see this phenomenon for millennia. Right. It's almost like nothing actually affected it. It right. had different garments, right, different stories and all that, but that relational attitude toward of one group towards right. the group called Jews has not changed.
Exactly. And there's a study here we did in Germany, some scientists did, and they actually found out, it's so interesting, there were some places in Germany where there were pogroms, right, before Holocaust even. It's been on in the whole of Europe and the world. And there are specific places where we have recorded history about what actually happened as a pogrom. And they found out, if there was a place like saying in 1700 where this happened, they found out it was very likely that 100 years, 200 years later at the same place, another pogrom would happen. Why is that? Curious. The old guys died who did it, so they cannot do it again. But they passed it on through generations. And there's another thing that we really try to even resolve more, what I call the genius loci. It's the Latin word, the genius, the spirit of a place. And we have spirit of a place, like look at San Francisco, it had a specific spirit, right? And a spirit of a place attracts people or rejects people. Some love to go to San Francisco, some hate it. New York, same thing. Why is that?
Israel, same thing.
Israel, same thing. Germany, same thing. So why is that? Because we as people co-create this relational space, and it's kind of adapted to the earth. There's a saying that we are the earth as humans. So we can look at the earth also as an entity, as a body, and we came out of that body. It's an allegory, but we have to find, like, to broaden our senses. What's at play here? Like the earth, the place on the earth is important. Which people I am with is important. My attitude towards them is important. And I'm aware of time here. I want to make a point here. I think we talked about before about, I made the point of being able to change identity. There's another thing. I need to be able to allow diversity. I can say I am the German, but if I make this the whole thing of the world, I'm totally going down the drains. If I think my way of living is the only way of living, I'm totally lost. I need to be able to say, yeah, I'm a German, you are a Jew, you are an Israeli, you are an American, and that's fine. To honor diversity, to honor difference. And this is a big challenge for most people, because
it's also challenging because you have certain people who want to kill you. So it's not as simple. It's different if, you like chicken and I like steak and we're trying to figure out,
right,
how to get along. But it's different if you literally were raised to want to kill me.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's start then on a microcosm. In the therapeutic session, when do you see that this can work? When is a person, right? You've seen a lot of people, you've treated a lot of people, you've been doing this for a long time. When does this work that a person is able to open their worldview to something else? And when, under what conditions won't it work?
The first condition is that it doesn't work for the person anymore. The way the person lives doesn't work for that person anymore. And this brings
what some people can be obese and broke and they just keep going on another day. So
right.
what is the measure that a person can't take it anymore?
I think it's individually really different. Some take it really for their whole life. They're obese their whole life and that's it. They die. So there is a sense something must awaken in them that allows them to say, I don't want to do that anymore. It's miserable. I feel bad. I want to have a change here. And that's, of course, a crucial point for many because they don't land in that place. They keep going. They keep deviating. They keep not looking at their stuff. And this is a problem, we have to say.
So I want to bring this to a head. So we kind of, although it's it's more nuanced and there are more grades in this, but we kind of see the world as people who either feel like they are part of this Jewish thing and a part of this ideal that we describe often in our programs, this ideal of trying to bring this unity above the diversity and all those things that you mentioned from Gestalt. Again, it's the exact things that we see as well being spoken of. So we see people who sort of belong to that group, whether they act on it or not, it's one thing. And then we see people who belong to this other group who almost can't help themselves but to be at odds with that other group. Like we've talked to people who are self-prescribed white nationalists or just people who did not like Jews, let's say, and there was something that they said they couldn't it's like something inside of them, a feeling towards this group of people that as long as they act a certain way, they cannot change who they are. Doesn't matter. We can be friends. We can talk. It's all good. But there's this attitude towards that group. So the question is, again, we probably can't put the entire side of the world that's in opposition to the Jews on the Gestalt chair, right? But maybe those who identify with this Jewish ideal, with the ideal of unity, as we call it, there's fewer of us. Maybe it's easier to put us in the Gestalt chair and do something. So what can we do? Because this is something I'd love to come out of this program thinking, okay, what's the next step? Because I'll just add this layer of urgency to it. It seems like the control over what's actually happening outside of me is growing less and less. I have less and less power. People feel more and more threatened as we start the conversation. People are resorting to weird customs that we saw in the 1930s of the last century on both sides, the anti-Jewish movement and the Jewish movement. You see Jews changing their last names as if it helps, like really weird things. What is the thing that a person who, from this group, our group, that wants to bring that idea, and we're having a hard time acting on it, right? We have all our lives, we have everything we do, and our patterns, our behaviors, our habits, and we're saying we got to do something a little different. We got to start to live up to this ideal. How do we do it? What's the first step we can do?
I believe the most crucial step is create healthy boundaries. What I mean with that is, and I want to honor Seth saying, well, if there's persons wanting to kill us, we cannot do this whole thing. I totally honor that. And the healthy boundary at this is the killing needs to stop, period. You don't touch my Jewish friend. And if someone tries to do that, I will defend him. This acting out that we talked about in the beginning needs to stop. You must not act out your rage. That's first thing. And if you're not able to not act it out, you will need to go to prison or whatever needs to be done. We need to be clear with. We need to be clear. We talked about inside out, outside in, and identities. We need to be clear about the inner work and the outer work. Outer work starts with, there's no bullets flying here. There's no one being beaten up, regardless of ethnicity or belief or whatever it is, gender. This stops. First thing, I worked for the Peace NGO, and they go to different countries rebuilding society after war. They say, we only go there if the bullets don't fly anymore. If there's bullets, there's violence, we go out. We cannot rebuild a peaceful community. It needs to end. So we need to be able to differentiate the different realms. The violence needs to stop, first thing. Only then we can do the inner work, right? And this is one healthy boundary. And then, regards to time, I just want to break it down. We want to create a healthy boundary in relationships too, because there's a secret to connection that most people don't know, and it's always very interesting for me. There's a saying in Gestalt therapy saying, contact is created out of boundary. Contact starts with boundary. Just when you look at my hand here, and the other hand wants to touch that hand, imagine this hand would say, I don't want to have a boundary. There would be nothing to be touched. This hand needs to have a clear boundary set by the skin and flesh and bones.
A restriction, if you will, of sorts.
There's a restriction maybe, but first of all, I think I want to differentiate between restriction and boundary, because it's a clear boundary. But then I think the skin is a beautiful example when you ask about our steps we need to take. We want to have a skin also emotionally. What does it mean? Because the skin lets in, for example, air, but it doesn't let in water. if I'm swimming, I'm not like, the water doesn't go in. But air is being put in the skin, and the air is also going out through the skin. So there is, like the scientific term, I believe, is permeable. I don't know the English word. So there's a kind of, not transparency, but you want to be able to differentiate what wants to come in and what not. And this is exactly what we want to build on all levels, on existence. You don't kill me, but I'm willing to say hi to you if you don't kill me. But then also on the emotional level, inside myself, I want to be able to say yes, also in intimate relationships. There needs to be healthy boundaries, and I need to be clear what's my identity. Otherwise, we have a soup. There's a symbiosis. We don't go there. We don't want that. We want to have clarity, and this creates
through this
context.
therapeutic definition, actually, there's something that came up in our last few talks. Is we don't need to start with the whole world. We need to start with the ones who, first of all, are not shooting each other. Second of all, understand what these healthy boundaries are and want to do this. I think that's a really big point to make. How are we going to make peace with them if they were like this? How are we going to do it? That's not what we're trying to do. First things first. First things first, we're interested in finding those people, whoever you are, wherever you are, from whatever background, who like you're saying here about these boundaries. They know who they are. They have their own feelings. They're not eliminating all of their feelings. It could even be rageful feelings, whatever it is, but they're willing to not shoot bullets at each other, and they really desire for some better life. And then we can join together and create this field. And I really think that defines what we're doing, what Leo and I want to do, and the whole Thejewfunction team is looking to do, is just create this field and add more, find more, collect more parts of this body and make this field. And we see how diverse it is, and that each, for example, you showed us that tree behind you. By you connecting into this field, you have all of those roots that go towards all your sphere of influence, and somebody else comes in to the field and they have their roots that go out there, and from this place we can radiate, like it says, like a light to the nations. We can radiate through all of these paths. It's interesting how a conversation about Germany and grandparents that are Nazis and Gestalt therapy somehow aligns with the whole message of what we're saying in the Thejewfunction, and illustrates that there's something universal that we're discussing and that we're part of, regardless of what our backstory is. It could be the most opposite backstory, but when we find that field and we desire that field, we find something that's so similar for all of us. It's very kind of awe-inspiring and wondrous
So
to experience that.
I have a question, like a sort of a closing question to Joachim. As someone who's sort of like looking from the outside, as you said initially, into this, and now maybe feeling somewhat a part of this. Do you feel like there's a special role for this group of people who carry that, those particular sort of traumas and also aspirations towards uniting the world? Do you feel like, because one of the biggest pushbacks we get is like, well, Jews can do it, everyone can do it. We don't, don't, why exclude yourself and all that? And we're not trying to exclude. We're saying someone has to start it, and you need a small group to start, like every big process in nature. And it happens to be this group. So do you feel that way towards this group? I'm just curious. Do you feel like that there is something that they have to do?
I'm sure this is what needs, like, there was a reason that the Torah was given to the people of Israel, and this is obligating, I believe, to whatever this means in real time. And when you ask me about the Jews, I understand that the root of the word is Yehuda, meaning coming closer. This is how I learned it. And I can relate to that very much, coming closer to, and then the question is to what? Well, to the Creator. And to also differentiate, we talked about healthy boundaries. I'm not interested in religion. For me, religion creates too rigid boundaries from my perspective. I am interested in spirituality. And this is why I long to become part of Israel as the people striving to come closer to the Creator. And I see you as part, I see myself as part of this, as these people. And we have a task to do together. And this is what I long to be able to do with you.
Well, I think we all long to do it, and it's actually meetings like this with someone who's like seemingly totally coming from the outside, who had no obligation, so to speak, to be part of it, and yet felt that desire inside. And I think that's what we like about this, that it is not a religion. It is not even though there's all these bags that you describe that come with it, but it's not it. It's really something much deeper. And if you feel it, no matter where you are in the world, we want to be with you. We want you in our circle. That's so we're really happy to be with you in our circle. Joachim, really, I mean, just thank you for coming here, opening your heart, sharing, spending time with us, talking about this important thing.
Yeah, I just want to give thanks to the two of you inviting me, and I cannot express fully what it means to me to be invited by you, not here to the show only, but also to the community of people striving to God. This is the most fundamental experience I ever had in my life, and I give thanks to the Creator for that. Thank you.
Thank you. We are the Thejewfunction. Like, share,
Expand
subscribe.
the circle.
Expand the circle. And we'll see you all next Sunday at noon. Actually, maybe next Sunday is Thanksgiving, I think. So, but stay connected. Stay tuned. We're not leaving. We're the Thejewfunction everywhere else. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Like, share everything we said. We have to expand the circle. Thank you, Joachim. Thank you, Seth. And
big hug, guys.
We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
And the stream is over, and